podcast where I interview men because I want men to talk. Today, I'm joined by Sam Owens. Sam, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Yeah, really well. Thanks, Lewis. Great to be here and thank you for having me on board.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate your time. So as always, I start with the hardest question and my favorite question. Sam, in your own words, what does it mean to be a man? What makes Sam a man?
So very good question and a sort of a very big question. I guess for me, it's more the sort of values, for me, certainly the values that I try and aspire to sort of live by. So I guess the main ones are around sort of loyalty, so, you know, in relationships, in family and friends. And I think most importantly as well, to your word, which sort of transcends into the next value, which I think is sort of super important for me anyway, is honesty, being trustworthy, true to your word, and do not lie. I think it's nothing more than a toxic trait when you have sort of the tendency to lie. So I think that's really important, certainly as a man, but for a person, any person. And then it's being supportive to people. You know, if you can be that rock, whether it's a set of ears to sort of listen to someone's problems or you know, support them however you can. I think that is a really important sort of trait. And I guess finally, just being dependable, being reliable. You know, someone that's always going to show up. You know, not someone that's going to sort of flake, but you can always rely on them. So yeah, that's, I guess, my sort of interpretation anyway. Certainly from a values and traits perspective.
Yeah, nice. It's really interesting to hear everyone's sort of answer to that question. You get some common themes. There was some nice ones in there that we've not sort of touched on before. I imagine people have thought about them but just never sort of touched on them. So it's always nice to get those opinions. So what I'd love to know is sort of where that all sort of stems from and why you sort of form those values. So it'd be great to just sort of rewind a little bit and sort of go back to sort of childhood and sort of what sort of got you into that position, what family was like, what it was like growing up for yourself.
Yeah, no, I guess a great sort of way to sort of position things. So sort of very fortunate. Myself had a great childhood, sort of fairly kind of standard, you know, great sort of school life, great friendship group, really supportive family and parents, but, you know, went through school, went to uni, etc. So really sort of, I guess, relatively kind of by the book sort of childhood. But I guess it's just, you know, you encounter many different kinds of people that you meet along your journey. So, you know, albeit from playing football in the playground all the way through to meeting your sort of first friends at university, and then, you know, to go on to get a job. And I guess you start to see trends of, I guess, character traits that you look up to, and obviously various sort of role models you meet along the way, whether that's a famous role model that you may sort of see on TV or sort of idolize, you know, on a sports field, all the way through to, you know, your first line manager, your first sort of mentor or lecturer at university, all those pivotal sort of role models at school, you know, your teachers, your sports coaches, etc. So I think that the main one, though, around sort of being honest and trustworthy, you know, my parents always taught me, you know, just to be, you know, whatever you do in life, just give it your best shot, and an honest day's work for an honest day's pay is sort of what they always had the mantra of. And I think, you know, just being honest as a person, I think so often that you encounter people and you almost have to take the occasional person with a pinch of salt. Are they over exaggerating, or are they, you know, being wholly truthful? So I think, you know, if you can just be honest with yourself, and it's sort of a great, I guess, you know, a great sort of stick in the sand, and you know, like, you're being a good person by being honest and trustworthy. So that's probably my most important sort of value and trait. I just want to be honest, to be trustworthy, and I think I've had that sort of instilled in me from a relatively young age.
Nice. Was it Bend It Like Beckham? Was that your
something like that?
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah, awesome. It's interesting that you sort of retouch on the trustworthy side of things. I mean, when there's a sort of fine line between fake it till you make it and that other side of it. So I would sort of like to touch a bit on, I guess, societal pressures, because you sort of said you had quite a nice group of friends and a pretty traditional route, uni, work, and just sort of carried on down that road. So when you were growing up, what were your views on sort of outside pressures? You talked about superstars, but also from sort of the playground as well. What was that like?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. So I grew up in North Wales, in a small town called Colwyn Bay. And I think, obviously, first and foremost, a wonderful place to grow up. It's, I certainly look back on it now and was very fortunate to sort of live very close to the sea. You've got Snowdonia National Park, fantastic place to live, but also somewhat a bit of a bubble, because arguably you're somewhat protected from those sort of external pressures. We weren't used to sort of city life, or the sort of fast-paced life that obviously you acquire when you go to the cities or when you do a little bit of traveling. I think the main sort of pressures, certainly as a child, it was kind of not peer pressure, but you always compared yourself against your peers. So whether that's in school, whether that's sports, are you always going to get picked for that sports team? And for me, my main sport was tennis. I played a little bit of sort of cricket, a few years playing sort of rugby, albeit I think anyone who knows me can attest to the fact that I was not a good rugby player. But certainly tennis and cricket I played. And I guess the only sort of pressures you really felt at those sort of young ages were, am I definitely going to make the team? And where am I going to be on that batting list? Am I going to get a chance to bowl? Is someone going to overtake me? So there's almost, competitive elements to a degree, but also you're sort of constantly comparing yourself to your peers. And it's the same in school as well. Even when they put you into sets and then they rank you and they announce the grades to the class. So I think, without realizing it, you get exposed to sort of societal pressures. But as I say, albeit ours was sort of relatively, contained in sort of North Wales. But I think when you leave that environment, and certainly for me, I left North Wales to then go to university in Bath, which was a fantastic experience. But then you start to realize that there's more pressures. And I guess the closer you come to, being removed from that sort of safety net of school, you start to realize it's not just a case of, well, where am I going to be in that sports team? Where am I in the class? It's you start to have pressures around, well, finances. So obviously, living independently as a student, when you leave school, you have very limited resources. It's going to last you a long way. Do you get a job? Do you sort of get an internship, a placement, etc.? And you start to realize there is a lot more sort of external societal pressures. Are you as well as that, are you going to sort of the right places, the cool places, so to speak, as well? So you start to get exposed to a lot more pressure. And I guess my timing of being at university as well was when Instagram started to motor through the App Store and garner a lot of traction. So my days were very much when Instagram was basically just a filter, a fancy filter that people thought they're cool photos. It's a nice filter. It quickly became people flexing and showing off items, and arguably a very warped sense of life. Obviously, I didn't do anything of the sort, but nonetheless, you start to think, well, how is that 20-year-old, 21-year-old? How are they in that particular car, in that particular, hotel destination, whatever it may be? And things that I'd have probably never been too concerned with previously, they start to, come into your head, and you think, well, if they're doing it, am I slacking here? Is this realistic to be in that position at that particular age? So, without realizing it, you quickly sort of get exposed to more and more sort of social pressures, I suppose.
Yeah. What's really interesting there is sort of your whole take on that and like how they were sort of fed into you. But you also touched on sort of playing sport and the competitive side of things. So where or how do you sort of find that balance? Because competitive nature is important, right? I think it's really important for young boys, young men, and even older men. Jesus Christ, we're all competitive in some way, shape, or form, to continue that competitive streak. But how do you find that fine balance between coming to social pressures and that side of staying competitive, I guess?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the competitive point is really interesting. I mean, we've all had either a sports game or a game of Monopoly or whatever it may be, any form of competitive, agenda with someone. And there's always that one person that takes it a little bit too far. They are so competitive to the point that it's almost unpleasant. So as long as I can be somewhere on that barometer of, not being at that end, obviously, it's enjoyable to be participating, to play in, etc. And obviously we would like to win. I'm going to do everything within my within my capability to win. I think there is sometimes a bit too much on the other side, but equally, I think it's important to be competitive in sort of every element of life. And as I touched upon, some of these unrealistic, warped senses of, well, that 20-year-old clearly may have that Lamborghini, but who knows? I've seen it on Instagram. Am I really going to be comparing myself to that person? And no. And I think the way I look at it is we're all running sort of our own races. You set sort of, I guess, goals, and obviously, lots of goals screamed together comes into, sort of a vision, and you all set your sort of visions, or certainly I do. And I know we're all running our own race, and it's just being very content with where, you are at that given moment in time. And I guess sort of self-accountability, whether that's in sport, whether that's in business, whether that's in, your relationships, whatever it may be. I think it's important to know you're all running your own race. And certainly for me, there's times when I know I need to be competitive because this is, a peer comparison here, or this is just a completely unrelated. I shouldn't even be concerned myself that individual is, posting X, Y, Z, or whatever it may be. So I think, just being sort of very in your lane, and in a good way though, and just focusing on constantly improving yourself, etc. Without the need to sort of be overly competitive on every element of life. I don't know if that sort of answered the question.
Yeah, no, I think I picked a couple of things that were quite interesting. I got like your almost like a way of questioning it, right? So it's like looking at what's out there and going, that's great for them. Do I need to compare myself to that? And do I now need to push myself further? Or is it a case of actually, no, right now, just because they're similar age to me and they're posting X, Y, Z, I'm actually not going to focus on that. I'm actually going to focus on my goals and my sort of vision. Was that sort of the...
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's super important. Focusing on your sort of self and your own individual goals, and you keep ticking off. It's like the whole concept of, there's loads of sort of thought leadership on writing to-do lists with the most tiny and arguably mundane little tasks, but as you sort of tick them off, you get closer and closer to sort of completing that list. There's a sense of sort of accomplishment. So having loads of little goals as an individual to sort of rattle through, before you know it, you just keep incrementally improving and sort of getting closer to that vision, really.
Nice. So let's sort of move on from sort of uni and sort of that's first step into adulthood, where you sort of take that career leap and you start to decide what you're going to do next. What did that look like? How was that led, and how did you sort of find those early years in career?
Yeah, again, really interesting question. And I think to segue into the point that you mentioned earlier about those sort of external sort of societal pressures as well. So I went to university, did a business degree, and there was a couple of 6-month placements within my degree. And it was a good chance to either see, is this the perfect career for you, or it's 2 attempts to find out what isn't right for you. So I did two fantastic placements, one and then the sort of employee benefit space, and the other for a management consulting. Sort of both were fantastic experiences, but sort of had it in my head that I wanted to go into the world of banking. And again, hearing some of your you sort of requisite course members or people that were at a similar sort of university, wherever it may be, and they're saying, oh well, we got this banking job XYZ, then it's like, well, now I'm being competitive, and now I need to pull my socks off because I know there's limited spaces in these sort of banking either graduate schemes or internships. I need to sort of set myself or stand out against the crowd, really. So that's when sort of competitive sort of behavior sort of comes into play. But landed a graduate scheme, well, actually sort of it's called a spring week at one of the banks, which then led on to a grad scheme, and then so on and so forth. So my first sort of 2 years in sort of my proper career, I say the placements were still, they were still obviously my career and sort of early stages of it, but finding a job that I really enjoyed. I did sort of just over 2 years at a bank in London on the sort of trading floor side of things, which was super fun. Learned so much. I mean, talk about I guess the sort of traits and kind of values you pick up on from some role models. Met some fantastic people that taught me an awful lot, but I've always had sort of a niggling itch to do something for myself effectively. So and this sort of segues into how we know each other. So I decided to sort of take the leap after doing 2 years in the job. Absolutely loved it, but wanted to set up a men's e-commerce luxury bag brand. So decided to move up to Manchester and join an accelerator where obviously the two of us met.
Yep, that's it. Ironically, both worked in finance, but met in t-shirts trying to
absolutely,
which is always funny. So just touching on London, like it's a city that people sort of strive to get to and want to, and obviously working in finance, working in banking. Was there a shift then? Was because the money side of banking and your sort of your peers and that sort of,
yeah,
saying it in a nice way, it can be quite a showy and quite a testosterone led field. So how did you sort of cope with that?
I think the main thing, I absolutely, I loved my time there, and I think there came a point where I was more focused on doing something that's more meaningful for myself and where my true passion is. And I think I'm of the view that if you're good enough at a particular field, or you do, what you truly love, there, you can make money in whatever sort of industry or whatever sort of route you choose to go down. I think finding that sort of true passion, something you can see yourself doing for decades, and even, past the point where you could arguably be retiring if you've still got that hunger and passion to do something. And I think that's just reflecting on the fact that was I potentially doing it for the wrong reasons? Had I been lured in because it was potentially a competitive thing that I should have been doing, and arguably chasing what I thought was, a nice sort of, salary, etc. You could see, you could very easily go down the route of saying, well, if I stayed at this for 5, 10, 15 years, you could start to forecast that. And I just sort of questioned to myself whether that's sustainable for me, whether I'd truly enjoy that. And I think that's a really important factor to consider. The financial aspect of the job is purely just one of many aspects. Obviously, I said I was very fortunate to work with some fantastic people, but was this the sort of industry or career that was going to get me up stupidly early in the morning, which it did, because it was stupidly early hours, but it wasn't the thing I was truly passionate about. And London's a fantastic city, and I'd always aspired to sort of go down there, and I'm really glad I ticked it off my sort of checklist, and would be very open to sort of going down to London again. But yeah, for me, the most important thing was to do what I was passionate about, and I've always been sort of passionate to start businesses. I've had numerous ideas written down in copious amounts of scribbled down books over the years. So yeah, really, it was just that sort of reset where I thought I have to do this. I'll kick myself for the rest of my life if I don't take the plunge.
No, nice. I think one thing that I'm sort of picking up, which correct me if I'm wrong, is everything that you're sort of talking about, even from like a younger age, everything you seem to question it. And is that a fair thing to say? Like, you're questioning what's happening and making.
Yeah, more recently though, I'd say. When I say more recently, possibly the later years of school, going into university, etc. I think it's very easy to get sort of almost institutionalized on a conveyor belt, and actually, challenging the norm. I mean, from my family's perspective, I was the first person to, certainly my immediate family, to sort of go to university. So there was no sort of pressure from my mum and dad to do so. But once I got on that conveyor belt, all I thought, you'd go to uni, you'd get your job, etc., etc. But I was like, do I really want to do that? So I've always sort of thought, I want a business and would like to do that one day. So probably questioning it at various sort of check marks or checkpoints along the career journey, and just sort of, resetting and, is this absolutely what I want to be doing? And I think that's important to do so, because it could be very easy to get caught up in a conveyor belt almost. And you often speak to people that have possibly not exited a particular industry or not taken that leap, which they wish they'd have done 10 to 20 years ago. So I think it is important to question things, but perhaps I did that inadvertently without intent in the earlier years, and certainly over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, definitely more proactively.
Yeah, nice. And then the other thing that I sort of picked up from that was taking value from every experience. So
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I think that's so important. Real life experience, whatever job it may be, you're going to pick a skill. And I think it's having the mindset to think, well, what have I learned? Like, what positives can I take away from this? Even if it was something you didn't particularly enjoy, there's always some positives and some value to be had. I mean, fast forward after that to talk about, I guess, some more sort of learnings and values that you can take from these experiences. Unfortunately, I decided to sort of part ways with the sort of e-commerce bag business and go into another sort of financial services job. And again, that's a pretty bitter pill to swallow. Obviously, something I'd aspired to do for many different factors. I realized that this is something that I couldn't do sort of full time immediately for myself. I needed a supplementary job, and you think, oh, okay, well, that's as I say, a pretty sort of bitter pill to swallow, but you get stronger from it. You learn things, you meet great people, You take things away, and then every subsequent experience I've gone on to have, there are so many positives to take away from things. And it sort of shapes you into the person you are. As I say, I've sort of cherry picked some of the character traits that I like, that I've seen from either, as I say, people that you admire on, arguably like celebrity status versus those that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. And I think the more experiences you have, the more people you're exposed to, and that's either, do I like their set of character traits? Is this something that I want to, cherry pick the best bits there, or is it completely toxic? And do I just reaffirm that I want to stay away from possessing those particular character traits? You always learn something and pick up something which shapes you.
Yeah, what I really like about this, and something that you're sort of touching on that I'm really quite sort of passionate about, is essentially living life, right? A lot of influencers and a lot of people out there right now in the sort of self-help space, essentially where I've sort of found myself right now, is these are my mistakes. You don't make these. This is what I've done, so don't make these mistakes. Whereas I'm the complete opposite. I think the quicker you can live life and the more things you can try and the more things that you can experience. I mean, I'm just 30. I've lived in 3 different countries. I've done a myriad of ideas and worked in a number of sectors, and I've lived a life. Like I have stories. It makes you a more interesting person, right? And I think you're hitting the nail on the head, which is like, just learn from life and question it and just carry on.
Absolutely. I bet you wouldn't have changed any of those decisions as well to live in any of those 3 countries. It's just life experience, right? And it's invaluable.
Yeah, definitely. Like they've all come with their, as you said, you meet great people, you also meet not so great people, and you have some great experiences and you also have some not great experiences. But as long as you can take lessons from them and you can question what happened and you can understand it, the next time you find yourself in something similar, you don't make the same mistakes. And it's 100%. And it's all right. Some guy you and I sitting here saying, don't do that, you'll regret it. We did it and it was stupid. They still go and do it anyway. So go and do it. Live life as quickly as possible and make mistakes and sort of learn from them. So saying that, you obviously said that the econ brand didn't work out and it was a bitter pill to swallow. What was that transition like? How did you sort of feel in yourself, sort of going from working for myself, I've got this great idea, this is going to be the one, to having to sort of step back into another role?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, first and foremost, you have to be pragmatic, or at least I felt like I had to be sort of fairly pragmatic with it. Financially, I needed the income to obviously pay for accommodation, living, etc. So I think that became the point where I was like, okay, let's be realistic here. Let's sort of get another role. But I think what it did make me feel is that I need to be really selective with the next role that I take. So that took sort of a little while to find the opportunities that I thought, could I see myself doing this for a prolonged period of time, and what were the best bits that I liked in my previous role? Could I get anything close to that in a new city? So by this time I'm in Manchester and not London. So I think it's just been a little bit more critical there. What would enable me to stay in a particular role for say a prolonged period of time and not sort of feel that I need to do something more, so to speak. I mean, the irony there is, obviously, I think you'd be able to attest for this as well. Obviously, when you do start a business or attempt to start a business, that never goes away. And I think, truthfully, I've always wanted to sort of go again and sort of waited for the right time, really. So although obviously I entered the sort of subsequent role with obviously great intentions again, sort of subsequently left to start another venture. But I think it's, again, where I'm going with this, it was like I'm down but not defeated sort of thing. We'll build on it. What skill sets could I also bridge as well? So can I learn a new skill from this new role that would enhance the arsenal of skills that will make me a better entrepreneur next time round? So again, that was definitely in the sort of prerequisites for the next role.
Yeah, I like that, because ironically, we both of our businesses during that accelerator, no shame on the accelerator. Like we've gone on to bigger and better things, but both of our businesses didn't sort of make it past the end of our time together on the accelerator. And you looked at it as an opportunity to upskill, find more skills and other things like that. When I went back into the world of work, I saw it as an opportunity to leave where I was. So I moved to London with my role. I took a role that was based in London, and that was my sort of idea of opportunity, was like, right, okay, I've done this city, let's go and try somewhere else using those skill sets I've already learned. So it's just deciding sort of what route or what works for you at that time.
100%. Yeah, and there's no obviously right or wrong way. And as you said before, it's, living life as quickly as possible, and doing what's right at the time. So I'm sure you learned a lot during your experiences in London as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I soon went back into a business as well, but it was it was essentially used as an excuse to move there. Found a role and took that leap and made that decision. So that sort of leads me on to quite a nice question, actually, which is sort of like one of the things that we're sort of focusing on at TRUUMAN is these 8 pillars, and one of those is environment. And it's not about being like green and recycling and washing your jars out, but it's more about where you are and where you're based and sort of looking at that. So for me, I like exploring, I like testing new places, and I've always got that itch. I don't know where it comes from. I don't actually know at all, but I do. I like to go and live in other countries and live in other places, and I find it very easy to move about. With yourself, is that something that you've thought? Does that go into the equation? What's it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've always wanted to travel, probably more than I have done. I've done very little. I mean, I've been on holidays, obviously, and the occasional, 2 or 3 weeker here or there, whatever it may be, but never to live abroad. Obviously, I mentioned that I'd lived in London for a bit, moved to Manchester as well. But for environment, for me, I think what I look for is, I think, somewhere where I can build a support network. So whether that's friends and family, and I think as well as that, it's ensuring you're surrounding yourself with the right people. So environment for me is very sort of people led. So for example, when we went into lockdown, at that time I was in a sort of a salaried role, and I hated lockdown because I was on my own for most of the day. Albeit, my fiance lived with me, or did live with me, and so I wasn't alone in that sense, just alone away from the team, virtual teams, etc. So I quickly learned, and that's probably a learning, and probably a positive learning from COVID, that I'm terrible on my own. I need a team. I thrive in a team environment. So again, making sure that I'm around friends, colleagues, support network, etc. And I think somewhere as well, like, I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I will happily have spots in the house where I know that I can completely chill out as well. So having a bit of a a head space, kind of focused room or zone in the house where you can really sort of chill out and draw that line between work and work and sort of downtime. However, to attest, I am a bit of a workaholic, so I will always either be on my phone or my laptop. But I think it's those times, recognizing those times when you need an environment where you need to sort of de-stress, etc. Having, I guess, maybe either a place you go to or a protocol. I mean, another great thing as well is, when you say environment, it's being around. So I love being around the countryside. So I'm not a million miles away from some really nice green spaces where I can go for a nice walk, stick a podcast in, clear the head a little bit. And I guess I quickly learned that these kind of patterns or things I do were probably really good to just keep a clear head. Whereas it was very exemplified in COVID, where you got that sort of 1 hour walk a day or whatever it was, and your team are remote, and you have very little social interaction, and the gyms are closed, etc., etc. Then you're thinking, wow, what is the step change here? Why am I feeling different? Whereas now I'm able to identify, well, actually, these are the things that make me tick, make me happy, etc. But I guess in a really elongated way, I've never really felt the need to sort of go and travel to. I'd love to do it one day, but not a dying urge. Hopefully one day I do get to sort of, live somewhere new, live somewhere a bit different. But for the time being, fairly content in Manchester.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with COVID. I think it definitely questioned it, which is something that people will not have done in the past. It would have been very easy to live in XYZ, do XYZ, and be around certain people. And then when things were strangulated, essentially, and sort of compressed to a few rooms in a house, it soon opened up a lot of questions. I had friends that left London instantly and went out into the country. I stayed. I was in a fortunate position that I had that segregation, office and the rest of the house, which was again really important. But you're right. It's that COVID time, just for me and clearly for yourself and hopefully for other people as well. It started to question that and start to see what it is that they wanted. For me, after COVID, now that we've got freedom again, I instantly want to go. Like I'm at the airport when I can, and like I need to fill my passport. But for other people,
Nice.
That's not the case. So like you've got to, if you've not questioned it because of COVID, you should probably start looking at it, because it's very easy to make simple changes. Like I know you were in Manchester city centre and you've obviously moved out a little bit, but like I say, access to country, which is something that's ticked that box for you. So it's not too difficult to change certain aspects. And again, a little headspace room, it's not a difficult thing to achieve.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And then you touched on environment actually being a number of things, and one of those things being sort of a support network. So in regards to sort of your friends now, and again, sort of work friends as well, I guess, is like there's sort of that different side of the same coin. What are those relationships like? How do you sort of unwind, and how needed are they for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Something that I would argue never really sort of critiqued it until over sort of COVID as well. And I think I'm very fortunate. I've got a lot of great sort of friends, great close family as well. But realised I've got this really sort of supportive group that I can go to them, turn to them professionally. When you're having sort of either difficult days, more stressful days, you've got someone at the other end of a phone or has similar sort of experience. So I've got a good mix of friends who are either entrepreneurs themselves or who are in sort of relate to some of the to the stresses. And I think a problem shared is definitely problem halved. So obviously when you are a business owner, and we can sort of get in later, but there is sort of a step into the unknown with certain elements, things that you might have not experienced. So if you've got a support network of people that have been there, and it makes what might seem like a mountain actually something very tiny and a sort of speed bump that you can easily overcome. I think another thing which is great, I'm surrounded every day by a great team of co-founders, and all of which are extremely active. And I think inadvertently, as I sort of went through my career, the sort of early stages of it, I quickly became this workaholic that probably neglected a bit of sort of the health and fitness side. Always sort of gone to the gym, but probably the wrong kind of training. So being around people that are very much into the the healthy mindset, healthy body, healthy mind, great influence for myself as well. So inadvertently, my friendship group are actually ticking lots of different boxes. That firstly, I've got that sort of outlet where I've got my friends, social side, which I get a lot of enjoyment from. I've got support professionally within my network, and then obviously fitness and health as well. And I think it's a very cliched thing to say, but you are absolutely the aggregate of the people that you do spend the most time with. So very fortunate on a few of those different areas through my network, and definitely sort of it encourages me and inspires me to sort of improve really in all those different areas.
Amazing. So yeah, I had the fortunate pleasure of attending your birthday party, and I can say hands down that everyone in that room was essentially your best mate, which is a test to yourself. And I really want to just sort of touch on something that some of your values that you touched on right at the beginning of this sort of podcast. And I think that's one of the reasons as to why your friendship bonds must be so strong, is that you are who you say you are. You are on the tin. So I just wanted to say that's, I mean, going all the way back, it's because one of the questions would be, how do you sort of build those relationships? And I think it's quite clear from my experience with yourself that it's trust, integrity, and just being a nice bloke really has allowed you to
appreciate that,
to maintain those relationships. Would you say that that's a fair comment?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, thank you very much. It's very kind to say, but I think absolutely a very good trait that I didn't call out, but you sort of touched there, is integrity. I think that's an important one. But again, just being a nice person. I don't see the need to be. I'd rather put someone up than feel the need to sort of put someone down. And I know you must have encountered. We've talked about many great people, many not so great people, and there are too many people in society that have the need to just put a snidey comment here, a snidey comment there, and before you know it, you're not a nice person when you say stuff like that. So just costs nothing to be a good person, and obviously, I stand by the sort of the values and traits that I mentioned before. But yeah, really kind words. So thank you.
Would you say that is like, how would you say you've sort of gone about finding your network and keeping your network and your group of friends? How do you keep that sort of?
That is actually interesting. I think there's two lines here. I think there's well, actually maybe not so much, but you have your friends and you have your network. And I've seen it before where people have this network and they say they've got a network. It's very transactional. If they want something from someone, they ask, take, and don't sort of give in return. So that to me is not really like a relationship. It's not a nurtured sort of relationship. And I'm not saying that my friendship and my network, I've overly engineered this in that way where I'm thinking, I might be able to utilize them one day. I'm going to be nice. Now that is not the purpose. If I like someone, I get on with them, and we share similar values. So it's going to sort of stay in contact. But I think little things, checking in how they're doing, how's business, how's your weekend, etc. And I've noticed over the years that a lot of people that I thought were a lot closer to me than perhaps they are now don't tend to proactively reach out. How are things? How's it going? And I think you just sort of carve this. You have sort of a big circle of friends or network that can be slightly condensed. So I think to maintain a good relationship professionally or socially, it's just making it a two-way street. As I say, there are a lot of transactional, more acquaintance relationships, and I don't really sort of see the point in that. If I've enjoyed someone's company or we're aligned, I'm going to keep in contact, and I think that's sort of super important. Making things a two-way street and not just take. I mean, I'm sure you've seen over the years, very transactional, individuals who are quite happy to sort of take what you're offering effectively or ask you for that favor. But, when it comes to being reciprocated, it's never done so.
No, yeah, definitely. Can think of a few. I think won't name drop today. One thing that sort of stands out that I personally was dreadful for. When I was in London, I was a shell of a man. I was looking at some photos and I just looked dreadful. But it's that just that little, even just a hey, or just a how you doing, or they might not respond. But for you and for me now, that's something that I actively try to do. Is I will reach out to someone. I actually have it on my to do, is to reach out to one friend every week and just see how they are. Might be a phone call, might be a text, just someone different every time, because I allowed a lot of those relationships to just fizzle and I wasn't proactive in them. And I think it's very easy to hold a grudge almost and be like, well, they're not reaching out to me, so I'm not reaching out to them. Whereas well, if you want the relationship, just reach out. It's not,
absolutely,
it's going to know long term, right? So that's something that I actively do now and try to keep to. We're busy people, everyone's busy, right? But it's important to do. And I think with me moving back up north, I've really appreciated friendships, and I've really tried to sort of grow them and nurture them and try to keep them alive. And it's tough. I'm in several WhatsApp groups, I'm sure you are as well, where it's it's either just a load of crap being said in there or nothing at all. So it is hard. And I just sort of went outside the WhatsApps and just messaged these people directly, and you end up having relatively normal conversations with them rather than a crap ton of memes and other shite in there. But that's it was interesting that you said that as well. So great little anecdote, I guess.
Nice. Well, I like the to-do list anyway of reaching out to someone every week. I may add that to mine. It's nice to do.
Yeah. Well, not everything has to be like you say, transactional or business orientated or whatever your focus is right now, there's got to be balance, right? So I'm gonna ask a question in two parts that will allow you to sort of segue into your next bit of your story, but also sort of bring in some other things. So you were going through a number of roles, and you decided to take the leap with your new co-founders. What was the conversation like with your partner and sort of the closer family? Because you'd done it once, and it'd be great to hear.
So contrary to what I think I have some friends who would have had the opinion of what are you doing, but from my partner, she's super supportive. I mean, for whatever I've done, she's extremely supportive and has a lot of confidence, which is great, because I think this is when I'm very fortunate to have a partner now, fiance, who is but we're a team, right? So she sort of makes me also who I am as well, and sort of enhances those sort of values, sort of makes me sort of stronger as well, which is fantastic. But complete and undeniable sort of support for it, which is great, in arguably the most potentially stressful year of my life, which sort of coincides with me getting married as well. Arguably was that sort of an extra risk, but it sort of had to be done. But she was super supportive under the circumstances, and I think from my parents and immediate family's perspective, again, the same for them. They were business owners themselves, and have a lot of trust that whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to do it I'll give it my all. If some things work out, some things don't, but we understand that you're going to give it absolutely everything, so it will work out. We've got 100% confidence in you, so super supportive. And again, that really pumps you up as well to have that network. It also happens that the business model and business plan were extremely robust as well, which I can sort of go into because it is a fantastic concept. But again, just having even those sort of initial sort of test the waters, like what's my partner going to think, what's my parents going to think about the fact that I'm considering doing this. But yeah, just complete support, which gives you that conviction as well. Not that I didn't have it, but it's great because that really sort of lifts you up as well. So I'm very fortunate in that respect, because I know that I have friends that have gone on to start businesses, etc., who might have had a little bit more pushback, which again, that could fuel them in their own way. But my immediate circle of friends and family are very, very supportive and have a lot of belief in me, but also my co-founders fundamentally. Like when you look at it as a package, which we can sort of discuss, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think support obviously helps, right? And I think if you're in the unfortunate position where it's not reciprocated and they're sort of questioning your decision, I think you said you've got a robust business plan, and it sort of goes all the way back to what we were talking about before, which is like questioning it, like saying, right, so I'm going to do this. These people are saying that it's not a good idea. There's a couple of people saying it is a good idea. What can I do to reaffirm that? And actually, rather than just going, let's do it, question it quickly, obviously, but like question it and actually have a proper, what are their concerns? Why are those concerns there? And how can you potentially overcome them to keep the relationship? Or if it's something that you're truly passionate about and truly want to move forward with, question it yourself and say, well, how can I make this work, and what can I do to sort of achieve this? Support's the holy grail, right? And I think it comes eventually, but it's great if you can get it from day one.
No, 100%.
Lovely. So I also want to touch on your that sort of transition. So like I said, live life. It seems like you're trying to squeeze a lot into this year. So this is you'll be buying a camper van next, and
yeah, absolutely.
Traveling Australia. So that'll be December's mission. But it's quite a big step, and it's a big step up. Like, how have you balanced everything? What does your sort of life look like now? How do you keep yourself above water, focused, and keep all these plates spinning?
I think balance is important, but balance in a routine. So I'm quite regimented during the week. So I've always sort of got up fairly early, but I get up without sounding sort of very cliche here, get up early, do a gym session. But I think that's good because it's good for the head, but it gets me focused into firstly a time routine, which is great because I know that where I'm going to be between the hours of sort of 5 a.m. and let's say 9 a.m. I know exactly what's going on because it has to be militant in the morning. So that's good from a structure perspective, but I can be really productive. And just like me as an individual, I'm an early riser. I'm not very good after a certain point. So it gives me, I know this is where I'm going to squeeze my exercise in. This is where I'm going to do my working day. And then this is where I can have some downtime or spend some quality time, with my family, with my partner, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think balance is important. And I would definitely not advocate just zooming in on one of those, for example, just working and then maybe neglecting, doing that, either that exercise or that walk that you needed, or, if you were going to go see a friend, go and see a friend. Because I definitely did do the whole workaholic and neglected, for example, the sort of health, the gym side of things, which definitely has a negative impact on not only sort of your performance to do your job, but there's lots of sort of elements that sort of come with that. So I think just being balanced and sort of knowing what makes you tick, what makes you operate well. I've learned a lot about myself in terms of, what time do I need to be going to bed? And I mean, I'm not a robot by any means. However, I would know to myself, if I go to bed at 11, I'm probably going to not feel as fresh when my alarm hits at 5 a.m. that I would if I went to bed at 10. And it's just being a bit mindful of those. So my weekdays are very, very sort of regimented to a degree, but with that downtime that's needed. And I think that's allows you not to burn out, which I think is really important, because then that also means that obviously the weekends, which, you can spend some time to relax. I'm not burnt out. I don't feel like I do need to completely relax and take my foot off the gas on the weekend, because it has been a fairly sustainable week. So I can, do what work needs to be done on the weekends as well. And it for me, it's provided a really nice balance. Whereas previously I would work consistently Monday to Friday, burn myself out, spend Saturday, Sunday recovering, and you've just got this almost like this vicious cycle. So considering the other factors that make you tick, make you perform, make you happy, etc., are super important.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm not a morning person, and I still have a morning routine. It's a very short routine because I have to be out the door, but it's still the same. I still think it's really important, and I think that's, you say, cliche. It's what works for you, right? So like my energy is, ironically, unless I'm speaking to a lot of people, if I'm just working all day, my energy actually gets bigger. So for me, I work out in the evening because I sort of need that to decompress. But it's that questioning, right? What works for me? How's it going to work for me? And sort of formulating your own plan. And consistency isn't perfection, right? So like if you're doing something, it doesn't have to be every day. It just needs to be consistent, not perfect.
100%. Yeah, and that's how you get those sort of incremental gains as well, without realizing you're improving, right? If you keep to the same routine, it's like the little incremental things. Well, you're going to get a little bit stronger, a little bit fitter, a little bit more productive in your work, and before you know it, you get this sum that's greater than the sum is greater than the aggregate part. So it's exactly that.
Yeah, and it can be anything, and it can be small. And I think for me, so just to touch on me personally, when I was going through this whole thing almost a year ago now, I didn't have anything. I'd lost everything because my whole thing was just business, and I was just like, I have to do business. And then as soon as that stopped, I was just a bloke. I start, ironically, in his pants on his sofa, which is not a good look for anyone. So that was the first thing I did, was create that morning routine. And like, I didn't have anywhere to go. That was the irony, but I still did it because I knew it was important to get back into something. And then that's where everything else stemmed from, and everything else sort of felt clearer. You just naturally feel a little bit accomplished, and you just
massively so. I think it's very underrated, like having these little routines. And I touched upon it very well at the sort of early parts of the sort of conversation around those, again, arguably mundane sort of checklists for the most average task it could possibly be. But if you're rattling through this tick list, you are accomplishing things, and it is, whether it's psychological or whether it's a placebo, I've no idea. But for me, it definitely works. And obviously, it sounds like the same for yourself, following that routine, boxing those things off. you sort of get this like reignition of energy, of sort of of a bit clearer. Really, you see things a little bit clearer.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. Maybe it's because I think you might get a bit of dopamine. Who knows? But yeah, no, nice. So yeah, let's touch on the new venture. What's it all about, and how's it going so far?
So the new venture is a business called Boodle. So I've got myself and 3 co-founders who have created Boodle. Boodle is an open banking payment solution for UK e-commerce businesses and SMB businesses. Effectively, we enable e-commerce and SMB businesses to easily accept an open banking payment, which is basically a rapid bank transfer. So either at their e-commerce checkout or on their invoicing structure or sequence. So whether they want to send an invoice with a link, we can allow a customer to make a payment safe and securely within 6 to 10 seconds with considerably lower fees and instant settlements versus cards. So we're effectively positioning ourselves as an alternative to card payments and some of the other payment methods you may be accustomed to. But it's going really well. We're relatively early in our journey. So we were founded in March 2022, and we raised some money in October 2022 to sort of get off the ground. And obviously now we're in July, and we've accomplished a lot in a short period of time. But the most single-handedly, I guess, the most important bit for me that I want to zoom in on is the importance of, for me, our co-founders. So I've got a fantastic team around. Not only have I touched upon, they're great for, supporting me and helping me from the sort of health and fitness side. A great bunch, really talented and smart. But ultimately, again, it's one of those scenarios where the 4 of us have sort of come together, and there's a lot of synergy, a lot of, pressure is taken off when it's 4 of us. So I'm very fortunate. I've got a very talented team, but it's helped us get through high times, low times, challenging times as sort of a 4, but all going very well. It just blink and it's July. It doesn't seem like 2 minutes ago since it sort of started up. So yeah, all going well so far.
Amazing. And if you'd like to try it out, it's at the TRUUMAN checkout. So you can both buy my course and also use Sam's payment platform and see how smooth it is. I can attest. And
we're making a cheeky plug there as well. If you go to the App Store and download the Boodle app, you will get some nice rewards for spending through Boodle as well. So encourage you to do that too.
Yeah, you can use my referral link, not Sam's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nice. I'll put that in actually. So yeah, you're right. Co-founders are so important. I think we've both done solo businesses, right? And this time around as well, I have a co-founder, and it's so much easier.
It really is. It's not only easier from sort of, for me, from a stress perspective, from my mental well-being perspective, but I think pace of delivery. And I'm sure you can attest to this. You've got double the sort of horsepower with a co-founder, and in my sort of scenario, 4 times, and it's great because you're constantly moving forward. If one person's not having the best of days, for whatever reason, you've got the others to supplement that and sort of keep you moving forward. So yeah, massively grateful, and certainly would never sort of go solo again.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just a sort of final question, I guess. What's next for Sam as a man? What's the plan? Bit of rhyme.
So, yeah, I like the rhyme actually. That was intentional. So for me, I guess the next challenge for me, and something again which I won't have experienced, but will be married life. So I'm getting married in only a few months now. So again, a new aspect to life, which will bring its amazing upsides. Also, I'm sure the occasional challenge as well. So a new sort of challenge really, which I'm very much looking forward to. But again, as well, running that in parallel, obviously as the business scales, that is going to unlock, different challenges, different, environments that, are going to be testing for all of us, but, exciting as well, whether that's the need to travel internationally and maybe tick off that box, which you mentioned, being able to sort of travel overseas, who knows? So I guess, it's going to evolve me as a man, or try and test me. But I think if I can stay true to my my values, I'm excited for sort of the coming years. But yeah, as I say, marriage being the sort of main new sort of challenge on the horizon or opportunity.
Amazing. Wish you all the success and happiness with that, and obviously success in your business as well. Sam, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.